We're working through all the great dimensional stitches on the Husqvarna Viking Designer Brilliance. And now it's time for the applique stitches. So first off, where do these hang out? Applique stitches are in the L menu. The L menu has all the dimensional stitches. So if you don't know which ones are for which technique, then utilize the Joy OS Advisor, touch the sewing machine in the top center, select from the select technique area, probably you're on basic sewing techniques, so select dimensional stitches. Here we're going to start with applique stitches, and when you do this you get to where you can see the video for the applique stitches, see what you need for supplies, all the step-by-step parts, as well as which stitches are the actual applique stitches. You're going to notice that you get put in the project little area and it shows you only the stitches related to this technique. So if you're looking, let's do stitch number 4. Now notice how wide that is. That is 24 millimeters wide. We have the S foot is what is called for because this is going to take us side to side. We were just playing with the sequin stitches, so that's another group of techniques that are in here. Now also, when you pick this stitch, you will notice that the needle stop down function is blue, so that means it is on. I like to use the start stop button with these stitches, and here is the reason. So when you do the start stop button, you're going to get to a point where the design is going to stop. If you're using your foot control, you might not know if that was a stop point or did you lift your foot all the way up and it stopped kind of willy-nilly. So here's what it's going to look like. I'm going to raise the foot just a little higher, and you do see that we have part of the stitch made. And the needle's kind of hanging out towards the forward part of the stitch. You're going to want to take a piece of fabric. These are cut about 1.5 inch square, which is plenty big enough, but it's something I can hold on to. With that needle down, the foot comes up, and then you're going to slide the piece of fabric right up to the needle. Push the start stop button and let it continue. Now I'm going to show you a little trick once we get going here, but this will stitch around and you'll see that why we really don't need as much fabric, but it's easier to hold on to. But here is another little trick. So sometimes when you push this up to the needle, you really don't get it as close as the stitch needs. So if you want, take a little tiny snip and then bring that piece, snip right underneath the needle. And again, I need a little bit more room for my fingers. So there, and it kind of hugs around the needle. Then when it stitches, you're stitching a little bit more into the fabric. Now I'm going to do one more of these just so you can kind of see the whole process. And I can push that scissor button while it's stitching, which indicates to the machine, hey, by the way, I'm going to be done after this pattern. Should we do that again? We'll do that little snip and little lift. And here. Boy, doesn't this take the guesswork out of all of it. Feels like you're not really doing much, which is kind of fun, why this technique is so fun. When I'm done here, I'll show you where I've done this on my Stitching Cosmos quilt. I actually did these stitches right here, all with applique. And then they're trimmed down to size. Here we go. Okay, so it ends, and you're kind of left with this like pile up of fabric. So you're just going to take some curved scissors. Now this is a raw edge applique technique, so you will find that this kind of raw edge will have a frayed look to it, and that's okay. So, but it is something that if you are using some tighter weave of fabric, like this is batik, that would land in that category perfectly, that it is going to stay a little bit more contained and not get too frayed out as quick. Now you can get as close as you want to the stitching as desired there. And look, I still could definitely use the other side of this square for another repeat of the stitch. So if you have a nice long section you're doing, this is Very easy to just work your way. I would do this when you're fresh. You know what I'm talking about. There's times of the day that you do better sewing. You do have to kind of stay semi-focused when you're doing this so you don't get off track at any one of these steps. Okay, so lots of different applique stitches. There is quite a few. It looks like about 13 different stitches on that screen for you to try out.